Okay, final album then.
Yeah, so it's Music for Hypercapitalists by Post Coal Prom Queen. It was released on the 12th of August. Technically contains, I think it's 12 tracks.
Yeah.
And again, relatively short album. The only reason I was kind of sniggering there, because my note says it contains space songs. So I forgot it contains songs. It does contain songs. Yeah, and it's a relatively short album as well. It's only 24 minutes and 40 seconds long. It's the band's first full-length studio album to date, as far as I'm aware, and follows the release of their last extended play, PCPQ EP, which is a 4-track EP previously released earlier on this year on the 29th of April. The band themselves are a Scottish electronic duo comprising of Lily Hingham and Gordon Johnston. Their sound is described variously online as the evolution of L-Space. They create infectious pop landscapes that combine elements of electropop, trip-hop and PC music. However, they themselves refuse to be pinned down or pigeonholed into any one genre and see what they do as being a dynamic and ever-changing process and experience. This album has been described online, I believe on their Twitter page, as a cyberpunk jaunt through a nightmarish panopticon. And although we're saying that there's kind of 12 tracks on the album, it's kind of framed as a kind of call and answer interview with this kind of automated digitalized voice. That's how the album starts. So the opening track is kind of titled Question 1, What Brought You Here Today? It opens with this kind of the old dial-up noise from years ago.
The old modem dial-up noise.
Yeah, before we hear this kind of automated digitalized voice introducing herself as a representative for PCPQ Industries, a semi-autonomous subsidiary of the Omni-Good Corporation, and has kind of connotations of kind of omniscience and kind of all-knowing. We're going on to remark how you're applying, insert candidate name for the position of intern assistant hypercatalyst, and then lists what you've supplied in preparation for the interview. And it starts off with the type of things that you would expect, so like your passport, driving license. We're going on to list like that you've supplied your psychiatric report, the notes your mum would put in your lunchbox, and the face that you keep seeing in your dreams. I thought that was pretty cool. I quite like that. It's funny because, like I said, it kind of starts off with the type of things you would expect, like your passport, your driving license, your blood type, then goes on to list all this stuff, and then somewhere in between there it's like your national insurance number, and that kind of caught me off guard as well. But I thought it was really quite good. And again, kind of in keeping with this idea of the kind of Omni-Good Corporation, this idea of omniscience, I kind of felt as if I had like proper kind of Black Mirror vibes, which I quite liked, which I'm in the process of kind of rewatching at the moment. So yeah, this is kind of complemented each other quite well.
Yeah, it does feel very Black Mirror. I was thinking of like, like the satirical bits in like films like RoboCop or Starship Troopers, that kind of like, that kind of form of satire. And I don't know if you know, games like Portal, or have you heard of the Stanley Parable?
I've played Portal before.
Yeah, but it's like, this sort of that kind of omnipresent like robot voice that kind of tells you what to do and stuff. It feels a bit like Portal in that respect. And the Stanley Parable is a bit like there's a sort of narrator who narrates your gaming experience, and it just feels like the same kind of science fiction kind of like vibe, I suppose, that I get from, like you say, Black Mirror or like those games or whatever.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've picked up on this as well, but like I think it's maybe kind of towards the end of the first track. This kind of automated digitalized voice kind of tells us how we've just passed the void camp test.
I see. I didn't really know what that was, but I figured you might.
Well, yeah, I kind of thought that I would know, and I'm glad that I kind of don't. Well, I do know now, but I remember being like, well, fucking, I'm a mental health nurse, studied psychology, like that. That's maybe something I should know, but it's a fictional test.
Oh, right, okay.
But yeah, it's a fictional test from the 2019 Blade Runner film, which is used to distinguish between replicants and humans.
Oh, so it is a Blade Runner test, okay. So that's in the original Blade Runner as well.
Is it? Yeah. So yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. And then We get track number 2, which is entitled Familiar Forward, and features Jackal Trades, who is a Glasgow-based hip-hop electronica artist. I thought kind of started with, upon kind of first listen, I thought they'd maybe kind of sampled like a football game or something like that. Don't know if you kind of got that impression. I don't know why, like it sounded like almost like football commentary. I can't quite pick up on like what words he's using. I don't know if it is or not. I don't know. And then we hear kind of Jackal Trades coming in, because I think it starts with like it's something season. That's the only words that I could pick out. It's something season. That's kind of repeated a couple of times before then. You get the main the main part of the song kind of coming in, and he kind of raps over the top of a kind of jaunty sounding electropop soundscape. He kind of raps or sings about this kind of really quite tense and frightening dystopian future where we're kind of under constant surveillance.
Aye, I like when he's talking about how he's away to collect like food from his Uber driver, and he's like, when I say Uber driver, I mean drones, and when I say food, I mean like it's made of insects and heated by microwave, and like it's a cool song.
I did kind of laugh though, because the guy sings in obviously a Scottish accent, and I think like so after that bit that I was telling you about where there's this lyrics like it's something season. I think it starts off with like, hello, he says. Just find that quite funny for some reason. Yeah, but the bit that you're talking about, I think, does he not say like, when I mean guys, I mean cyborgs, or I mean drones? Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah. It was quite cool. And you do get this kind of ever increasing feeling or sense of kind of paranoia and frustration, and that's kind of acted out in, I suppose, the lyrics where, the main protagonist kind of, I think in his attempt to escape or kind of get off grid, kind of talks about how he's deleting his social media accounts, he's deleted his crypto bank account, and with the last bit of energy kind of gouges his right eye out. Yeah, I just thought it was quite a cool track.
Yeah, it's all very cheery stuff. But I mean, we're as well to just talk about the questions, I guess.
Yeah.
In order, because like you said, it's framed as this like job interview. That first question was what was the first question? What brought you here today? And then familiar forwards, like sort of a response to that, and then question 2 is what would you bring to this role? But before that, you get the kind of robotic voice saying, here at PCPQ Industries, we're proud to be right at the frail, dying heart of capitalism and are committed to squeezing every last drop of blood from civilization. And like I was saying before, I just like how sort of humor and satire and of this kind of despicable like mega corporation that is all the terrible things that we talk about corporations being, and it wears that on its sleeve. It doesn't try to hide it.
So, but see, before that kind of digitalized voice goes on to say that. So this guy's obviously kind of talking about being his wit's end. You know what I mean? He's done all this. He's gouged his eye out. Does it not start with thanks? We don't believe you.
Aye, yeah, absolutely.
I thought that was quite funny. Yeah, and then this was track 4. We've got Fractured Prism. It features Texture, another Glasgow-based hip-hop artist. Features some pretty banging kind of keytar flourishes and frills, which I quite enjoyed. That did have a real kind of Blade Runner kind of 80s feel to it.
Yeah, it's definitely got that like pounding kind of 80s beat.
Yeah, that was a highlight.
Yeah, and that like chiming, I think that song, whilst Texture's like vocals are good, it's all about that kind of chiming. I suppose you described it as keytar there, that sort of melody, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It's a good track.
What did you think of track 6, man?
So, what's that? Dragon's Jaw?
Yeah.
So that comes after question 3, which is where do you see yourself in 5 years, and demands that applicants demonstrate their obedient submission in the name of the almighty prophet.
Yeah.
But the Dragon's Jaw is like a pretty like serious jam. It's like set in 2050 where no one lives on the surface. Even sentences are digital, and I'm pretty sure at one point they say that Weatherspoons was voted into power, but I might have misheard that. It just sounds like a ridiculous thing, like Weatherspoons has become controls controls the world or something, but it's like, yeah, I mean, Dragon's Jaw is definitely one of the best tracks. It's got this like juddering bass and synths that open the track. It's got, it's dark and brooding. It's got these crashing soundscapes, and they all surround like rapper Conscious Roots vocals, and they're themselves are like super atmospheric. His vocals are pretty deep, and that goes really well with like that sort of like darker nature of the track. And the bit where he sings, "We in the depths of the dragon's jaw, we in the steps with the saboteurs, we have no future now because the past lacked that backbone." So
That's
good.
That's really good, man. Really good. Yeah, yeah, I really enjoyed that track, and it's interesting that you kind of mentioned Waco, on and pinned the kind of Waco documentary onto the metaphysical notice board, because the rapper is so he's a rapper, MC, poet, and singer songwriter based in London. Grew up in Cambridge and moved to Edinburgh, and he interestingly also features in Jack Hutchcraft from Waco's podcast Human Magic with Jack Hutchcraft back in May. So yeah, quite an interesting wee coincidence there. It's a really really good episode of the podcast.
I'll have to go back and listen to that.
Definitely, but yeah, no, I really enjoyed that, and yeah, as you quite rightly said, that kind of vocal refrain of we have no future because the backclass lacked backbone, and we effed home, no backbone. I thought kind of worked really well, and I've kind of mentioned here in my notes that yeah, it kind of gave me some food for thought, because we kind of tend to think or see the past through kind of rose tinted glasses, kind of tend to see the past as being in some way kind of better to what it is now. But yeah, maybe if we were kind of more conscious of the stuff we were kind of doing in the past, we wouldn't be in this position, you know what I mean, with regards to kind of climate change and poverty and all the rest of it. Again, I'm kind of going into it a wee bit, but yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you say we look back on the past with rose-tinted glasses, but certainly with regards to the climate crisis, we look back on the past and say, "You fucked it for us."
Oh, absolutely, aye.
We definitely do that now. So yeah, it's very apt.
Quite relevant.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the next track is the only time where the album breaks from that kind of question answer
section.
Yeah, it goes straight into Puddles of Mercury, which is, I mean, probably the weirdest track on here.
I have to admit, like, I enjoyed the album as a whole, but I did find this a bit of a hard listen. I kind of get it. I can understand. I think I get what they were trying to achieve, but I did find it difficult. The female vocals, which are provided by Somnia, reminded me a bit of that bit in the Flight of the Conchords song, Hip Hop Hippopotamus versus the Rhinoceros, particularly where like Brett McKenzie sings that bit, why because I rap about reality, like me and my grandma, drinking a cup of tea. I don't know what it was just kind of that vocal inflections, and it's kind of, she sings in an odd way, I think that's fair to say, or raps in an odd way.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the vocals it's not rapping at all. It's just like
ooh, like it's
bizarre vocals. But I think the bit like in the last minute where it's like really hushed, like hurried, rapped vocal, and there's these sort of drilling drums and like bleeps and bloops around it. That's a really good part of that song. But the rest of it is, you have to get to that point first, and you've got to get through a lot of weird stuff. It stands out on the album as being definitely the strangest thing on there.
Yeah,
and it's definitely not going to be for everyone. But so once you get past that, you get on to question 4, which is please outline your relevant experience. And at this stage, we hear another intern being murdered because he looked away from his screen for too long. And again, this is all quite, it's an extreme version of the reality we live in now, because people do work like this where they sit and they are monitored that, making sure that they're at their screen, especially in the pandemic, like people working from home. Like companies have software where you have to account for your time. And if you're away from your screen too long, you get penalised for it. That's happening now. Not in quite an extreme fashion. People aren't getting
bumped off,
hacked up or whatever. But so it's, again, I suppose it's in the name of the album, that hyper capitalism. It's like hyper realism.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's an entertaining part. And then we move on to Nefertum Flex, which sounds quite otherworldly but tribal at the same time. It's got that kind of pitter patter of like hand drumming, and then there's this sort of an odd sort of Streets of Rage style like musical flourish. I suppose that sort of 80s electronic sort of sound. And I think the vocalist on this, Empress, is just superb.
Yeah,
her vocals are brilliant, and the track is like, it's like a really smooth, really laid back floor filler, and it's got this really great line where she goes, get down, get up, get the doubts to fuck, get the ground hurt up, get the sound turned up, this is what you're waiting for, this is the sound of love. And it's so good. Like, that's up there with the best moments on this album for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree.
So the final question is, why do you want to work here? And apparently the only one that matters. And what follows is just like this cacophony of samples and beats and electronics. And the song title kind of goes quite well with that. It's called The Horrible Odyssey. And it does kind of slowly start to like, all these elements slowly start to sort of gel together and settle into a bit of a groove. It's got, the staccato kind of drums are really cool. Vocalist Miles Better's, his performance is really antagonistic. Quite a bit of a bite to his performance, but it's like when there's electronic sounds that come in like a choir.
Yeah,
that's when it really hits its stride for me, I think.
Yeah, I did enjoy you said the kind of almost like all female choir. I've described it as kind of female kind of backing vocals. I enjoyed it, and I would agree with you, although I did find them sometimes a bit overpowering at times. But other than that, I thought it was a really good track as well.
Yeah. And then, well, that's the last track on the album. It's a good way to end, and because it's actually, it's one of my favourite tracks there. And then it closes with basically this robotic voice telling you that the interview is over and that you'll hear from them in 6 to 8 working months.
Yeah.
It's quite funny. I think this is superb. And I think despite the kind of framing of this story with the sort of questions, you can just listen to any of these tracks in isolation. You don't really need the story to be in there. Puddles of Mercury probably would feel a bit out of place without the context of what's going on around in the rest of the album. But I think all of these songs you could just happily listen to without having this kind of sci-fi story in the background. All the instrumentation's really good. All the guest spots on the vocals are brilliant. And I really enjoyed this.
What did you rate it, mate? What did you give it?
I've got my 9, solid 9 for this.
I enjoyed it, although I did kind of feel as if, I suppose it is just one track, Puddles of Mercury, as I said. Yeah, I did kind of feel as if that maybe let it down a bit. For that reason, I kind of gave it an 8 out of 10. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You can listen to any one of these tracks on its own. It doesn't necessarily have to be kind of framed, framed in that kind of call and answer kind of interview setup. It's not a lengthy album by any stretch of the imagination, so it doesn't kind of feel as if it overstays its welcome. I think, as you said, the instrumentation, the backing tracks that Post Coal Prom Queen provide are really cool, really interesting, really quite innovative. I think the band recently played in the fan section when Scotland were playing in the Euros, so it'll be interesting to see whether they've kind of played any of these tracks there. I don't know. I've got a couple of pals that were in the fan section, but I can't imagine they had the wherewithal to really take in anything that was going on around them at the time.
Imagine they just played this album in full to the Scottish fans. Like, they wouldn't have a fucking clue what was going on.
No, I don't. But yeah, be interesting to see what they come out with next. I think they are touring. If you go onto their Bandcamp page, I think there is a few gigs.
They might be playing Hidden Door Festival, which is next month. It's an Edinburgh festival. I'm not certain of that, but they might be. But yeah, I'm sure they are. They'll be picking up a few gigs here and there now that everything's opening up again.
I imagine seeing these guys would kind of be a bit of an immersive experience.
Yeah.
Because I think they would kind of monkey about with kind of light shows and what have you, and kind of visual arts and that. So I think it would be really good.
Well, one of the songs from their PCPQ EP is called Faraday Cage for One, and a Faraday cage is like a metal cage where like electricity like shoots from like a node in the center and like sparks on the sort of metal cage and stuff. So I imagine they go into all that kind of mad visualization and stuff. It's a pretty cool track off their EP that sounds very Portishead. It's got that kind of haunting side to it. But yeah, like I would agree. I think they'd be a cool band to see live. It's worth mentioning that they were on Fiona Liddell's cover to cover album. They did that cover of Kiara Bailey's Disappear, which was just like a storming, like 80s pop banger. It was brilliant.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think I'm getting.
There were a few of those on that album, but that was one of the highlights.
That was the one with the almost kind of 8-bit kind of flourishes, wasn't it?
Yes.
Aye, that was an absolute banger.
Yeah. Cool. So that was Music for Hypercapitalists by Post Coal Prom Queen.
Hello. Enter candidate name here. Thank you for your interest in joining PCPQ Industries.
The billboard that passed by perfectly describes the image in my mind from my dream last night. Stomach rumbles at the sign and at the next traffic lights. I'm approached with my order by those Uber Eats guys.
This is the edition, mixing myth and fiction. Like archetypes illuminate the patterns of projections.
We in the depths of the dragon's jaw. We in the steps with the saboteurs. We have no future now because the past lack backbone.
The confusion is perpetuating society like poison that moves us through time.
Get down, get up, get the dope stiff up, get the glow car up, get the sound time up. This is what you're waiting for, this is the sound of the love.
The gods on the stage of a refugee. What means when your own fate meet? You cannot stay asleep or stay home, brother, cause the end of the motherfucking world is coming.
We done finished. It's finished.